the art of misrepresenting something extremely complex and effective in a very trivial way. This is what happens right now with PMF in public. You know, we have about, I count, 80, 90 different PMF systems. At least they say it's PMF. Actually, half of them have already nothing to do with PMF because they don't even deliver a pulsed electromagnetic field. But because the shortcut PMF is pretty trendy right now and is pretty good on Google, you know, some companies out of the energy medicine field, they try to somehow get their system into a PEMF thing. There is, did you ever about Healy? This little device for 4,000 whatsoever? This is just a piece of crap. You know, I looked inside, $8. Eight Canadian. It's €5. That's the material value of a Healy. There's nothing inside. You know, and they created a huge marketing out of this on a global scale. And they even talk about PMF. You know, this Healy thing has nothing to do with PMF. It doesn't even expose a pulsed electromagnetic field. You know? And of course your question may be, why are they still on the market? Because nobody from the authorities go after them. That's the reason. That's the one and only reason. You know? And if I go after them, that's going to be a lawsuit for 100 years. Like Budweiser, we just came up with this. There's a little village in Czech Republic, Budweis. And there is a lawsuit, and they have a very good beer. It's called Budweiser. And we know Anheuser-Busch, it's Budweiser. And there's a lawsuit going on since more than 100 years, what most people don't know, which is still not solved. Who has the brand rights of Budweiser between this little village and Anheuser-Busch? And it just came to my mind because Veronica, remember we researched that 2 days ago and we found it out that the lawsuit is still unsolved. Yeah. And this is going to happen if I go after them. And I have no time to go after the competition because I have to deal with all the issues and challenges on a daily basis, what we have to do, right? But it's insane what's going on right now in the PMF market. There are companies out, I found systems, I show you some of them later, they cost between $2,500 to $3,000, even $4,000. I can give you a link where you can buy exactly the same device in China for $150. Exactly the same. Huh? And this is unbelievable. And people, because they lack of education, they believe in this stuff. It's only because of lack of education, nothing else. If you would know which questions you should ask to these manufacturers in regards to the properties which should be delivered to make a PMF system a true, that's what I call them now, a true PMF system, then you would expose them in 5 minutes. Which I did. I did it with 10 of them. And I didn't get one answer. I'm sorry, we cannot disclose this to you because it's company property. You know, if a PMF company is not capable of disclosing what they emit, don't buy it because that's a scam. That's as simple as it is. You know, from that 100 systems, I tell you from the bottom of my heart, 80 systems, they deliver dirty electricity to your body. Because they don't even have a signal generator built in. So they take the current from the wall, they hack it in 10 pieces, which, by the way, physically makes 6 hertz. Because here is 60 hertz coming out. If you divide 60 hertz in 10 pieces, you suddenly have a frequency of 6 hertz. If you make it a little bit more precise, you suddenly have a frequency of 7.83 hertz, and then they claim they have the Schumann resonance coming from a dirty the electricity source. So you get Schumann resonance, completely dirty, and it will not do anything good to you. It will hurt you. And because nobody cares, these companies exist. And I want to make you aware of this, because this is now the only way we can educate people and make them aware. And that not only happens in PMF, in the whole energy medicine world, this happens. You know, there are also the other modalities, bioresonance, where you only heal with frequencies. The problem is you cannot even measure that. The cool thing about PMF, it's a measurable physical force. You can measure it. You have a Tesla meter, you have an oscilloscope. You know, if you put an oscilloscope in front of an applicator exposing bioresonance, zero, you will see nothing. You better believe in it. You know, which is good, because placebo effect is more powerful than you know, but I would not always rely on it. It always helps to let something to you with a good intention. Right? But it doesn't help if you only rely on this. And there is not even a button which you can turn on. Then you will not have the same results comparing to really to have proven scientific properties which are measurable, which are verifiable, and so on and so on. And this is what's going to happening right now. I have a perfect little example for you. Do you know this phrase? Electromagnetic energy is the fundamental energy upon which all living organisms depend. I think we all saw them more or less somewhere on the internet. Very famous. It's a quote from Dr. Werner Heisenberg, a German physicist who worked a lot with electromagnetic energy, and he was a Nobel laureate, you know. About 7 or 8 years ago, I met his son. He's a professor at the Technical University in Munich. And I said, can you please answer me a question? Because even us, can you imagine, on our previous website, we use this quote. Because it fits perfectly to what we want to present to the people, right? Because it's very powerful. So I asked him, I said, did your father ever say this? I said, that's a big joke, he never ever said this. This was a quote which somebody invented out of context during a speech Mr. Heisenberg probably did in front of an audience, where he probably said something which was related to that, but he never said this. He never ever said this. And, you know, rule number 2, the internet doesn't forget anything. Once it's on, it's on. And suddenly, a quote which was never ever quoted by this very famous and very, very honorable person ends up in the internet and gets misused. He never said this. Period. You know? And this is happening all the time right now. A lot of people, a lot of companies, they just copy-paste. You know, to make a new website with AI, AI doesn't know if Heisenberg said this, because AI will not ask his son. But if AI finds this quote on the internet, oh, that sounds good, that fits perfectly to this website, let's take it over. And bang, here you are. You know, that's the downside of AI. Because AI can only rely on existing information, and AI does not determine whether this information is verified or not. So that's a huge problem. And that's why, you know, there's so many second-hand, I call it second-hand quotation. Because you just take it from somewhere without checking whether it's verified, whether it's true, and whether are you even allowed to use it? That's the next thing, right? And so that happens, suddenly you have 50, 60 manufacturers of such PMF devices, and you read more or less the same content, even if the systems are completely different. And believe me, that's what's happening. And you need education to determine what's right and what's wrong. So the so-called unverified acceptance of information effects, especially in online communication, is nowadays an established and unquestioned reality. That's happening on a daily basis. Do you agree with me? Does it make sense that this is happening? Right? So here we are. We have the established behavior of sharing and altering information by copy and paste. In addition, with a personal touch, made PMF what it represents nowadays in societies. Because what people do they not only copy and paste, then they put their personal flavor on top of it. But our Schumann resonances are much better because of whatsoever. Right? And then we end up with a still controversial, questionable topic among science, because science is not stupid. They look at all this and they say, something is going wrong here. Because there are so many controversy publications, phrases out of PMF. This cannot be something really verifiable. It's not. And for people like you and me, it's still a complex, confusing, and misrepresented physical phenomenon. And I can tell you that PMF is nothing else than 100% applied physics. And here's the problem. If physics would be so easy, and if physics would be understood by everybody easily, we would have no problem. Even me, after 30 years, if I would have to explain to you now the law of induction, which is one of the most fundamental laws which we use in PMF, I'm not able to explain it to you properly. I'm very honest. Because it's so complex, and I'm not sure if you remember physics, when we went out of the classroom with all these question marks around us, and head down said, I will never learn this, I will never understand this. This makes it so dangerous, because on one hand, PMF is 100% science. On the other hand, it is quite not understood by people like you and me, because it's so complex. And because of that fact, it is very easy to deceive people and to mislead them with incoherent information. Just put the marketing pitch out with facts. People don't understand it anyway. How can you prove if the Schumann resonance is coming out of that unit or not? Right? Nobody can prove that. Well, when you manufacture a PMF device, and you have to certify it, as a medical device, then you have to prove it, because otherwise we won't get a certificate. Because then you do have all the measurings, the tests and everything. All these clinical evaluation. We have a clinical evaluation about the IMRS prime of about 210 pages. Cost me a fortune. Without that, nobody reads that. But you have to have it. And you have to have it in a way that's nothing wrong what's inside. Because at a certain time, somebody will read it. And if you didn't do it properly, they say, oh, this is wrong. You get your certificate, you get your license off, And that's what I'm talking about. You have to understand that, And you are allowed to ask questions. If a PMF manufacturer comes to you and wants to sell a system to you, ask questions. And when we're done here today, you know exactly what questions to ask. And if they cannot answer these questions, thank you for flying Coconut Airlines. Okay? So, my thought was, if we create and perform an objective and verifiable comparison of physical, mechanical, and electronic properties which define a PMF device, then we have it. Also, value price, very important. There are PMF systems on the market, they cost 5,000, they are worth 5. There are systems out, they cost 2,000, they are worth 300. There are systems out, they cost 60,000 high-intensity PEMF devices, they cost 500. Just from the material what they use and from the ingredients. You know, mostly building garages. You know, highly dangerous because they expose such a high field intensity and so on and so on. So that's the way to do it. So what do we have to look at? That's the first thing, waveform. Now let's go into physics. I'm gonna stress you a little bit today, sorry. But it's time now to do that. So, those are waveforms which are known and described in physics. So, they are not invented or patented by companies. They are just there, you know, because they are used and, like I said, they are researched and they are documented in general physics. You learn about them in school. It's because that's what they are, and that's how they used. They used sine waves, for example, for delivering the current, and so on and so on. They use, for example, sawtooth waveforms in music. The sawtooth not only produces even, but also uneven harmonics, which makes it the waveform with the most exposed frequencies at a time, comparing to a sine wave, which can only deliver one frequency at a time. And then you have the square wave, which is a engineered sine wave. We just make the flanks a little bit, the rise is a little bit sharper and the falls, and the peaks a little bit longer, you know. And by the way, in order to create such a waveform, which we also have to do when we expose a PEMF field, you have to have a built-in signal generator or pulse generator. If you don't have this built in a PEMF system, the PEMF system automatically delivers dirty electricity. So ask a PEMF manufacturer, do you have a built-in pulse generator? And if they say, of course we have, well, then send me the tech sheet of what this signal generator produces. Oh, I'm sorry, we cannot do this. This is private property. Thank you for flying Coconut Airlines. You know, they try to scam. You know, they try to deceive you. We are Swiss Bionic, since the beginning, we always published everything what we do. You know, because people always say, you can't do this, there are all these copycats. I always say, good luck. Because to copy a triple sawtooth, that's a pain in the ass, I tell you. You know, it takes you years. You know, and you probably still don't make it. And if you make it, you still didn't get all the other properties which are necessary. And by the way, you cannot patent one of these classical physical waveforms because they are public property. And that's why, cool, some of the PEMF companies, they create artificial signals which have nothing to do with that. They patent it, and then they go to the market and say, we are the only one with this specific super cool waveform. Okay, but there is no science and no physics behind. You know, it's just to stand out comparing to others by having something patented. A patent doesn't tell anything about efficiency. It's only to protect a property. And patents are misused in medicine a lot. Huh? Did you know that aspirin is a natural ingredient which grows in a tree? Ascorbic acid. And you know how it became so popular when Bayer, the German company, made a pain relief out of it? They changed one molecule and patented it. Because if you change one molecule, it's not 100% identical anymore, and then you can patent it. And that's what they did. And that's what's done on a daily basis in pharmaceutics. You know, you take something from nature, you amend it a little bit, and then you patent it. So, the waveform is crucial. We will learn what it means. And those are actually the properties which I displayed here for you. Those are the ones we have to take a look at, to take a really close look, because they define if the membrane potential becomes increased or not. So let's look on the market. We took a look at all the PEMF companies. 98% of these companies, they give you a sine wave, because they have no signal generator built in. This is, even systems in the 80s were using this. This is the most ancient and most boring and most ineffective signal you could apply when it comes to a holistic PEMF device. But from a manufacturing perspective and from an engineering perspective, it's very cheap to produce this. The downside of sine wave is not because that it creates something bad, but it has a huge problem. It can only deliver one frequency at a time. And now think about this. You have 70 trillion cells, which we know nowadays that not every cell vibrates with the same frequency. So in order to create a resonating effect with each of the frequency of your 70 trillion cells, you have to make sure that you apply a lot of single frequencies in the same time, because otherwise it's not effective. The sine wave can only do one frequency at a time. So you can do I do the math. I tell you that if you use a sine wave on the left side of the whole body applicator, where Katie is lying on it, and Paul, I put you for example, on an IMRS prime with a triple sawtooth whole body applicator, this waveform. I put Paul for 8 minutes on our system. I would have to put Katie for about 2 years on the sine wave system to get the same amount of frequencies in her body comparing to Paul. This is more or less what it is. Because when this is what we do with the whole body applicator, we apply a triple sawtooth, which creates hundreds and thousands of harmonic frequencies on its carrier frequency. You know, then you have a symphony of single frequencies exposed to you in the same time, comparing to a sine wave in the same time. Does it make sense? And this is a huge difference.
How do you know that this wave is the best, that there are no other waves that can also...
Because no other wave is described in physics.
So this is the best wave?
This is what we know nowadays. It's the most sophisticated waveform in terms of the output of different frequencies at the same time. I would never say this is the best of all. We just don't know anything better till today. Don't get me wrong. Science is always as clever and as dumb as now. Right? Let's look what we know about all the vaccines in 10 years. When science is a little step further. Right? So science is always now. And that's why I say always as clever and as dumb. Because tomorrow it can change. Right? So, and because we didn't find anything better, we use this. Period. You know? And it's a tough cookie to use this because you need really good engineering. You know? To really precisely deliver. But the good news for you, when you lie on one of our systems, you will not get any dirty electricity. And if I ever again get an email from a client, or even from a rep, which I received last week again, that I measured your system and there is dirty electricity coming out of that, my answer was, if you say this ever again, I'm going to sue you. Because it's just BS. You know, people tend to say this. I don't know which gadgets they have to measure that. You know, in order to measure dirty electricity, you have to have good equipment, which you guys and me don't have at home. And we know that we don't deliver a dirty electricity because we have a built-in pulse generator. We're going to define the signals exactly as they should come out. Okay? And we have also this square wave here. Only 1% of our PMF devices give this option. We give this option additionally to the sawtooth with our local applicators, with the pad, the spot, because there's quite good research out that this signal, because of its very, very sharp rise, its long plateau and its very, very, very short fall time, has a very good analgesic effect. Because it triggers the output of endorphins. Yeah, and endorphins are good for pain relief. And that's why we use this signal for our local applicators, which you mostly use when you have some pain, or whenever you want to improve healing, wound healing or bone healing. This is the perfect waveform to do that, because it's just working very well. And we have more or less no science in regards to square wave and whole body exposure. And to me it makes sense, because comparing to the sawtooth, the square wave produces only the even harmonics, but not the uneven. And that's again physics. If you go on Wikipedia, square wave, it will tell you exactly what I told you now. It's physics. So we are lacking of all the uneven frequencies, which may make a difference when it comes to catch all of our 70 trillion cells, which we still don't know if we catch all of them. But our idea is, the higher the amount of frequencies we exposed, the higher the probability that we catch the most of them. So actually, PMF with our whole body, with a triple sawtooth, it's also based on probability. And not because we know everything. Right? So, 98% of all systems use a sine wave. 1% and 1% use square wave or sawtooth. I know one system, one of our competitors, it was in the 20 years ago, it was QRS, and now it's called pulse wave. Maybe you heard about that. They just changed the design, but the system is actually still 1998. Pulse wave, you can Google it, you will find it. And then you Google QRS 101 and you will figure out that's exactly the same system. The only difference is the QRS 101 was already manufactured 1998 and it was in Europe, and somebody in North America bought the rest of the units they produced, they put a different design on it, and now they sell it as pulse wave for $5,000. And the pulse wave is the only system which produces a sawtooth, but not a triple sawtooth. So only 1/3 of all the frequencies comparing to our system. But at least a sawtooth, heads off, that's a good system, because this system contains at least of a pulse generator. By the way, you can always recognize PMF systems when they have a very small control unit. You know, like a handheld or whatsoever. There is never ever a pulse generator built in. Because it requires some space, and the pulse generator creates a lot of heat. Because it transforms a digital signal into an analog signal. And that's why there is a lot of energy consumption, and with this energy consumption there is a lot of heat production. And that's why, for example, you can see our Omnium DA converter. It has a lot of holes because the DA converter inside produces heat. You know, and also the IMRS Prime has a connector box. And this connector box is made of aluminum, which is great for heat dissipation. And that's why you won't feel it so much. But the connector box also becomes quite warm, because in our connector box is not only one DA converter, we have two. Because we have a left side and the right side of the system. We have actually two completely independently running PMF systems in one, with the same performance. Yeah, nobody has this, you know. That's why it becomes very warm. So that's the story about the waveform. And here you can see, I found this is pretty cool, how a signal generator is going to work. So this is a basic signal here, and this is how a signal generator transforms a sine wave into a sawtooth. So you see these you have a sine wave, and now it will be compromised, and a lot of single frequencies will be light on top, and a square wave, a sawtooth starts evolving. You know, this chop, what you see here, this transformation, this is done by a signal generator. And like I said, if you take the current from the wall and you don't have this intelligence built in your system, you just transfer the dirty electricity. Because you cannot define the signal. You can only alter the signal and cut it. That's what a lot of these companies do. Like I said, they cut the frequency into pieces. But it doesn't make the frequency better in terms of its content. And this is what a signal generator does, or is capable of doing. Got it? Thank you. Next, intensity, field intensity. We are all driven by the fact, and this is probably wrong education, that a lot helps a lot. Especially the men here. I always experience that when they call me and say, when can I go on 400? Huh? Because it must be, you know, for us it's to achieve that we have to be exposed to higher intensity, because we believe that this is more helpful, that we heal faster, that we get faster results. Well, I can tell you that's totally the wrong approach, because in energy medicine, it's not about the intensity. It's always less is more, and consistency beats intensity. So, not going always on 400, maybe 2 times per week, intensity-wise. Better do intensity 25 on a daily basis, maybe even 2 times per day, but consistently. You know, it doesn't help you to raise your vitamin C level if you eat 2 kilos of vitamin C 1 time per month. Huh? Right? Or even, I give you another example, which is pretty cool. Brushing your teeth. How many minutes? 2-3 minutes? Usually? Yeah? Yeah. 2-3 minutes. Usually 2 to 3 times per day. If we are really on top of it. Let's say 2 times. 2 times 2 minutes, 4 minutes. 7 days per week. 7 times 4 minutes, 28 minutes per week. We invest on average brushing our teeth. Some a little bit more, some a little bit less. And now we have these intelligent people, they say, Saturday morning between 9 and 10 I have nothing to do. So I'm gonna change my routine. I'm gonna brush my teeth every Saturday consistently for 28 minutes. We know that the results will be quite different, right? Even if we invest exactly the same amount of time in exactly the same amount of time frame. And it's all about consistency. If you tell your wife, I love you, only 1 time per month, even if you shout it on her, you know, it's not the correct approach. To tell it every day to her in a very nice and lovely way, that's the approach. Okay? And if you want to utilize energy medicine for your benefit, for your health benefit, consistency beats energy. Huh? Just be consistent, and you don't have to raise the bar all the time in terms of intensity. And we know there are high intensity systems on the market, but those systems are designed for a very special purpose comparing to our systems. There is a technology, maybe you heard about it, RTMS, repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation. This is a technology, very powerful. It's a handheld device which is used in a clinical environment, very skilled people, and they apply it on the brain with extremely high intensities. We talk about intensities 100,000 times stronger than what we apply. For people mainly suffering from depression, with amazing results. And they use the high intensity when they apply it to literally create a reset in your brain, a reset, and it works quite good, you know, but you have to be very careful because the intensity is so high that it also creates a lot of thermal energy, and that's why it can only be used by skilled people, you know, and in a controlled environment because it's dangerous. And if I tell you now, believe it or not, there are high intensity systems out which you can buy on the internet, online, for $20,000, which emit exactly the same intensity than an RTMS device. Something is wrong here. But that's reality. There are systems out you can buy with those kind of intensities. And this is out of responsibility, my opinion. And this has nothing to do in your household. Because it's designed for a very specific approach. So, the perfect intensity range, and we know it from science. We have a lot of basic science on that. We just need to look where it is. That cell expresses a self-preserving gene at about 7 to 8 microtesla, rather than stronger fields like the Earth magnetic field, which is about 70 to 80 microtesla. So, in other words, if intensities are too high and our entire body is exposed to them, they don't do so good things for us. On the contrary, if they are intensity-wise within the range of the natural electromagnetic intensity values, then they do good for us. So it makes total sense to implement that research into a PEMF device for home use. And that's why our systems, they work within a range between 0.5 and about 100 microtesla. Very simple. Right? Frequency. 80% of people always mix up frequency and intensity. I figured that out because people always said, how high is the frequency? I said, what do you mean, how high is the frequency? Yeah, how strong is the field? The strength of the field is not defined by frequency, you know, by hertz. The strength of the field is designed by, let's go back, oops, what's the wrong direction, sorry. The strength of the field is defined by Tesla, or who said it? Gauss. Gauss is the old value. They changed it to Tesla. Okay, for you to write down, 1 Gauss equals 100 microtesla. So whenever you jump over Gauss, over a value, just remember 1 Gauss equals 100 microtesla. So the average good value intensity of a magnetic field is between 0.1 and 1 Gauss, and not higher. A lot of PEMF manufacturers, they advertise, we have the higher intensities. We are so high in intensity. Well, that doesn't say any good. Be careful, because intensity is not a crucial parameter. It shouldn't be too high if exposed to the whole body. It's a different story when we talk about punctual therapeutic approach, RTMS, where we only trigger a very specific part, a very specific spot. Then we may work with this. But if we use it in a whole body mat for a holistic approach, less is more, consistency beats intensity. So, and frequency, not to mix it up anymore, I tell you an analogy and then you will never mix it up anymore. Okay? When you look for your favorite radio station, what do you do first? You tune it. You look for the frequency, 91.4, 98.6, 99 point whatever. So, once you found it, what do you do next? You adjust the volume, intensity. So, what happens with the frequency when you turn up the volume? It stays the same. So, frequency is the content of the information. And volume is the intensity of the content of the information. Does it make sense? Okay, again. Frequency is the radio station. Volume is how you would like to get exposed to that frequency. A little bit more noisy or a little bit more calm, so you adjust that. By the way, it's not every day the same. Sometimes in the morning you need a little bit of relaxed music. Sometimes a little bit of AC/DC is doing the job. Because we are not always reacting the same. And this is also how we experience energy medicine. There is no super protocol. Because actually it more or less depends always on what we did yesterday, what we drink yesterday, what was in our mind yesterday, how we felt, and so on and so on. And that's why it's always better to put consistency prior to intensity. Because sometimes a high intensity can do no good things to you. Not that it creates a side effect or it harms you. It just leaves you with not a good feeling. Because you activate things which you don't want to activate at that moment. And that's why I keep it gentle, you know. 2 minutes per day, 2 times, 7 days, you know, no matter if you eat a little bit more or you less, your teeth will always be clean. Right? So this is the way how to approach energy medicine. So, the body responds best to its own cell frequencies. It makes total sense. You can only understand and respond to something what you already know. Wenn ich jetzt Deutsch spreche, dann ist vorbei. Schluss mit lustig. Dann versteht mich keiner mehr. You see what I did? I didn't change the volume, but I changed the frequency. And suddenly, because I spoke German to you. And maybe, do we have somebody speaking German, understanding German? So, did I speak German? Did you get something? I spoke German. I promise you I did. But of course you have to check out, because most of you don't understand German. And then you can suddenly not resonate with me anymore. This is the same, you know. If you want a PEMF system to deliver frequencies which you are capable of resonating with, they have to be within a certain window. And if they are not, forget it, scam. You know, and let's have a look. What kind of natural frequencies we have around us? I mentioned already the Schumann resonances. To look where we're at. Okay, we're still good. The Schumann resonance is 7.83 Hertz. Where does it come from? Well, it's quite simple. Little picture. That's our Mother Earth. That's me and you. We are standing on our planet, on the surface. And we are surrounded by a lot of frequencies. You know, right now, everybody is exposing frequencies. Everybody is receiving frequencies. We have 5,000 TV channels in this room right now. We just cannot see them because we don't have an organ. But if we would have a little gadget which could capture them and put it on a screen, we would see, I don't know, Sportsnet, TSN, whatsoever. And make it visible. But we cannot. So all these informations are around us. You know, and if we look a little bit back before electricity was invented, and we speak about a time frame of about 120 years ago, which is quite nothing in terms of the history of our planet. Imagine 120 years ago and before, there was no artificial frequencies around us. It was only the natural ones. The carrier frequency from the Earth magnetic field, which is nowadays scientifically calculated, 11.75 to 11.7 hertz. Very low frequency and quite stable. And remember that number, not in particular, but at least remember the 11.75 to 11.78 hertz. Then we have the Schumann resonance. By the way, the Schumann resonance is the so-called carrier frequency of the ionosphere. And the ionosphere is the space between the surface of our planet and the exit to the stratospheres. Everything beyond that blue line here. This is where the astronauts go, where there is no gravity anymore, no oxygen, no light, almost no light. This is actually an environment we cannot thrive and survive anymore because we are not designed for that. Right? But the space between here and here, this is the ionosphere, and interestingly and surprisingly, there is a frequency flying around, and this frequency is very stable. And the guy Schumann, this was at a time when the Germans were still on top of the world. Yeah, I'm not so proud to say this, but it's what's happening. A German physicist, and he figured that out. That there is a frequency, very stable, 7.83 hertz. You know? And one of the main causes of this frequency is the so-called spherics. Maybe you heard about the spherics. The weather, the lightning strikes. Everything was going on when we look up, you know, and have these heavy thunderstorms and stuff like that. They create energy. And the cool thing is, this energy is quite stable. So it seems like that our entire system, not talking about the system we established on this planet, we talk about everything around our planet, until probably the furthest away galaxy, is a quite well-functioning ecosystem with very, very precise information content. And one of them is the Schumann resonance. And it's quite stable. And interestingly, because now we know it, you can Google that. The Schumann resonances are observed 24/7. There are a lot of laboratories in the world, they do that. You know, and they also figured out that there are fluctuations. You know, and whenever there are fluctuations, for example, we have a weather phenomenon in Switzerland, we call it Föhn. It's when these extremely high temperatures suddenly hit, even in the winter, you know, for maybe just a couple hours, you know, and then people get headaches. There's another German word, wetterfühlig. I translate it, I feel the weather. You know, those are people, when the weather is changing dramatically, they get headaches. And I'm sure you have this here too. Those are the fluctuations in the Schumann resonances. Because suddenly we are exposed to frequencies where some people have a challenge to deal with it. And they create symptoms out of that. So, now let's speak about PEMF. If you would like your PEMF to align with the natural frequencies, which are good for us, and which we react positively, well, you better build it in. Right? And you better expose them. And that's why, you know, the carrier frequencies of the Earth magnetic field, 11.75 to 11.7 hertz, plus the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, plus also what makes sense, we have another biomarkers which we know that they should work, they should be put in the PEMF system because they also occur in your body, is the so-called brain waves. Alpha, beta, delta, theta. Interestingly, if you look at the ranges, they are more roughly between 0.5 and 30 hertz. You still have some gamma frequencies sometimes, but very rarely. They go a little bit higher in frequency, but more or less the range is between 0.5 and 30 hertz. So this looks like to be the range a PEMF system should expose frequency-wise in order to create a positive effect. And obviously not all the artificial frequencies which we are surrounded by, which starts already with the current coming out of the wall, which is 60 hertz. It's already above the biological window. Not speaking about smartphones, between 800 and in the meantime 1.6 gigahertz. 800 megahertz. You know what 1 megahertz means? A lot. 1 megahertz is 1 million hertz. It's 1 million cycles per second. And this is far out of a natural range. So those are the frequencies, they don't do good for us. If you suffer from pain because you fell on your butt, you can sit on your smartphone because you will be exposed to a pulsed electromagnetic field, but it will not be pain relieving because the exposed frequency and intensity range doesn't match your biological window, and therefore it doesn't help you. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. And it even harms you. If you have your smartphone on your ear for a long time, your ear becomes warm because the thermal energy produced by the high frequency warms up your tissue. If this is an ongoing thing, you will develop a brain cancer. It's just a question of time. Because at a certain stage you will damage your brain tissue to an extent where the membrane potential of your cell cannot be put up to a level where it's healthy again. Okay? And then we have the mechanical property. I allowed myself to do some surgeries on PEMF systems, which I love to do, just to cut them off, you know. The only thing what I don't like, I always know I have to buy them. And sometimes I know I have to spend now $5,000 for a device which costs $50 in manufacturing, but you know, you have to do it in order to figure it out. There are two concepts in PEMF systems, how you can transport the signal from the sender to the receiver, respectively from the applicator to the human body. And you can do this in a cheap way, in an ineffective way, or you can do this properly, which costs a lot of money, but which gives you a pure signal with a very high induction rate, physically, amazingly pure, and you will benefit from it. And by the way, this is a so-called mesh wire coil. The only advantage of a mesh wire coil is that you can bend it. And there are companies, they make advertising, we can roll our applicator. That's actually a beamer coil. Which a lot of people jump on that because they say, oh, that's cool, you know, I can take it wherever I want. Yes, you can, but in terms of efficiency and in terms of physical effects of a PEMF signal onto your organism, this is not the way to do it. Because those kind of systems, those are insulated mesh wire coils, not only, they don't even contain of solid metal. They have these little metal threads here, which are twisted together, which never ever create the same induction properties comparing to a solid uninsulated copper coil. Even from looking at that, without knowing the physical law of induction, that looks a little bit more trustworthy, right? So, and this is what we are using in our system. It's expensive. It's pure copper. And it became more expensive before now and during and after COVID. But copper has the best abilities to run current with the least resistance. So you have a very, very high capability of utilizing the energy what you run through these wires. And if they are uninsulated, and if they wind together like this, they create a lot of surface for good induction property. And induction is nothing else than transmitting the information from the sender to the receiver with a lot of power. That's induction, you know? And that's crucial when you lie on a whole body mat, that you get that energy into your body, you know? And here, not even close to the efficiency comparing to this mechanical concept. We are now working on new coil ideas. I had the idea, let's do aluminum. And then the engineer said, but aluminum doesn't have, or has worse values when it comes to efficiency. So it has a higher resistance than copper. But my answer was, well, let's do more windings. Let's increase the surface. The big advantage of aluminum is that it's lighter. So it's much lighter, so the applicators become lighter. And by increasing the surface, we might divide the energy a little bit more, distribute the energy a little bit more over the surface, which probably makes all these spots in between where there is lower energy disappearing. So we're making now tries on that, and now I already ended up with an aluminum coil with a copper coating. And we are pretty close. So this is the next evolution of applicator technology to implement that. So and mainly because they are so much lighter. And of course we don't want to lose the performance, so we have to work a little bit more on that to get it done. But it looks very promising. So and here, this picture on the right side, this is how a sine wave looks from a cheap PEMF manufacturer when they only cut the dirty electricity in pieces. And what you see here, all these flares here, this is the dirty electricity you get delivered. This is how our signal looks when it goes through a signal to a signal generator. That's a huge difference because that's a pure signal. That's English, German, Chinese. You know, that's all kind of disturbances here which are delivered with a non-cleared signal designed by a pulse generator or frequency generator. And this is definitely not what we want to expose to our bodies if we want to benefit from a PEMF signal. And if no precise pulse generation is present, the applied signal is dirty and may even harm the user. We know we have a lot of people, they suffer from EMS, electromagnetic sensitivity syndrome. If they get exposed to such a system, they're going nuts.
So you're taking the sine wave and converting it into a sawtooth. That's your pulse generator?
First we change it from here to here, and then
You do have a regulator.
of course,
Voltage regulator.
of course, we regulate it, and then we shape it.
All right.
Okay.
There's no point in having an external regulator to plug your device in.
No,
All right. Okay.
no.
Good.
So some of you guys know already this this video. I just want to quickly show it to you because to me it's always impressive to see that, because that explains resonance. So now we have all these nice properties, but we have to make sure that once you apply them, that they are understood by the receiver, by our organism. So we learned today the signal has to be within a certain frequency spectrum, it has to be within a certain intensity spectrum, it has to be delivered with a certain hardware configuration, coils, right? And what then happens in our body when this when we met all these conditions? This is pretty much nicely explained with this video. This is how this is in a laboratory in Japan. It was done in 2012. Do you know what a metronome is? The musicians use it to stay in the pace, you know, when they do music. So here you're going to see now 32 metronomes, and they are randomly activated by two people just with a finger. So they vibrate with their own frequency depending on when they were just activated. And what's funny is to watch is that all of these 31 metronomes, over time, they go in resonance with the first one, which was touched for the first time. And the idea is, the first one is the PEMF device, and the 31 others are your cells. You know? And if you, with this in mind, and if you look at the video, you're gonna figure out what happens when you lie on such a system. Let's have a look.
Are you saying it doesn't work with 20 or 40?
No, it works with
How many? 2.
with hundreds. So this is the PEMF device, because it was the first one, and now they randomly start all the other ones. Okay. It looks pretty chaotic, right? So now you would never ever think that they resonate with each other over time, but they will. Some of them at a very early stage. Usually the ones were already close to the sender, whereas others need a little bit longer. Now you lie on the system, and this one exposes this frequency, and all your cells are listening to it, you know, and you literally force all these cells to resonate with this frequency, to go align with you. And it's getting more and more and more. What's also interesting is, observe the surface here. It starts vibrating itself. This is the so-called bridge effect. When 100 soldiers with the same frequency go over a bridge, the bridge may collapse if the soldiers meet the frequency of the bridge. Huh? Yeah. We call that the art of multiplying power. Huh? And now you see, almost every cell is already in sync. And of course, there's always this one guy. This is the guy who asked for the studies of PEMF. I want to see the study before I don't believe it, you know? So yeah, you know, whether you show this guy the study or not, you actually don't have to, because it just takes a little longer. you know, and he eventually will change his mind. Which he does. And then, you know, you also convinced this fellow on the right side to align with all the others. And you can see there's pretty much force going on, right? So the more cells in your body align to each other, they even create additional force. You know, this is energy that's created, which improves and increases your membrane potential. And now my question is, what happens if I stop the PEMF device? What happens with the others? They will not stop. They will just stay with this frequency. Another cool thing about the PEMF therapy is, even if you only do 8 minutes on a whole body mat, your body will take over the therapy and deal with it for 4 to 6 hours.
What happens if the table doesn't move?
It will probably, it will take longer. Energy, if you're not hydrated well, the whole system will be more, you know, and then it takes longer until the resonating effect takes place. That's why it's so important to create a good fluid environment inside your body in order to make everything vibrating in a nice way. So hydration is very important as well. And then the last thing is what we call coherence. This is the art of mastering a PEMF device, because now it comes to the time where you put all these properties together in a way so that when they have to function together as one, that they deliver the best result. And this is something, this is probably only manageable and doable with experience. And this is what's happening right now in our company when we discuss how we can improve PEMF devices. We showed you two functionalities already, what we believe is the future of PEMF. And those are the so-called fast start programs. Because after collecting so many feedback and so many experience from users over the last almost 30 years, we feel comfortable now to create protocols with all that wisdom in one application. And as you figured out, the newest firmware update was equipped with cell training, which is a new FASTA program, and with longevity. And those FASTA programs, they contain of quite complex patterns, which we just believe that this will improve and optimize PEMF applications. So we are actually trying to go away from this disease-oriented protocol approach, iGuide, and going towards more into that FASTA program. Because, for example, the longevity protocol, it's quite long, you figured it out, 52 minutes. But it contains a lot of good stuff. There's, for example, it's the whole solfeggio 9 scale is built in. You know, which are all these ancient frequencies, including 528 Hertz for DNA repair and stuff like that. So you will get this with a single application. In addition to far infrared, which is also implemented now. So the idea is to make the applications more comprehensive, and so that the user doesn't have to think about what my problem is. We just try to give more information to the body in a very gentle and in a very organized way, because we collect so much of the experience already. And that makes PEMF systems more efficient, but in the same time easier to use. You know, and that's the approach what we will see more and more in the future. I'm working now on a new system, which will more or less then be the beginner system. We stay with the IMRS Prime as the flagship, but we will position a new system below, which is also price-wise more challenging for our competitors, which will, of course, contain of all our signature things. We will not go away from the coil quality. We will not go away from the waveforms and frequencies, but we will make it more, how to say, easier to use. Because we feel we need to be a little bit careful and also address design more towards the people who are using our system, especially the elderly, the people who are not so firm with computers, that they feel comfortable to use such a system in the comfort of their home. So that's coming probably by beginning of next year. So if all the properties of a PEMF device cannot be objectively verified, the system is considered a pretense of false facts and therefore junk. That's how simple it is. And then even $500 are too much. You know? And this is the deal about PEMF devices nowadays. And this is what's floating around in the market. 98 or 90% of all PEMF manufacturers do not disclose their technical specifications. That's just not right. You know, if you claim that you have this and that, well, disclose it. Show it in your owner's manual. You know, answer emails properly. You know, I get emails every week. What is the frequency of your signal? Well, I'm gonna send them what we have in our technical specifications. And I never get an answer back because it's so complex that people say, oh, okay. Yeah. It's like, send me a study. Okay, I send you a study. Well, 90% of the people cannot even read a study. And you can even 8 minutes lie on a study. It will not change your pain. You know? So we analyzed 10 different competitor products. None of them had a built-in frequency generators. All of them are using cheap mesh wire coils. All of them are emitting dirty electricity. All of them are a potential safety risk for the user. None of them is disclosing any reasonable specifications. All of them fail to demonstrate safety and efficiency. There are probably 4 or 5 systems which I would put my body on it, but not more. That's what it is. That's my personal view. So not all are bad. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm not going after all our competitors. There are some systems which are quite okay. You know, which we can at least compare to what we do. But most of these devices, they're not even comparable because they don't deliver anything. This is one of my favorites, all these crystal mats. Maybe you saw them in the internet. Healthy Wave and you name them, you know. I can give you a link. This one is quite cheap. Well, they look how they price it. From $17.99, that was in Europe, to $9.99. This is it's just crap. There's nothing inside. They don't even have a device to control them. And they have these glued on gemstones, which they claim it's far infrared, which is total BS. Gemstones have nothing to do with far infrared. Gemstones may, when you expose them to heat, somehow expose some far infrared radiation within the same wavelength, but they don't do that actively. As you know, we have an active far infrared system built in our hybrid system, which, by the way, is run by carbon fiber. Because carbon fiber has exactly the window of wavelengths which we want to use, between 3 and 14 microns. And it's quite safe, and it's a quite cool way to transmit far infrared waves. But they also claim the 7.83 hertz. It's a joke, sorry. Yeah, because there's no pulse generator built in. So the next one, also this one. Pro Multi-Wave 5 Therapy Far Infrared PEMF mat. $2,495. You see that little handheld here, that device? you can see already there's no pulse generator built in, you know? And they call it advanced PMF technology. Words are patient. You know? And yeah, this I actually found on Alibaba. This is Healthy Wave. It's a very established company in North America. You know, you can buy this in China directly from the manufacturer for $180. I give you the link. If you want to lie on it, at least don't spend so much money. So, understanding true PMF requires ongoing education as well as an attentive and clear mind. All information must be verifiably scrutinized and evaluated. Never take anything for granted anymore. Not only applying to PMF, if somebody tells you something, ask questions. You know, everything legal and everything true can be verified. Huh? And PMF is nothing else than 100% applying science. And science is indeed complex, but it is verifiable. And even if you don't understand physics, I hope I could give you a little bit of an insight now what to look at when you lie on one of these systems and how to figure out whether this is good for you or not good for you. And for all our reps, it may help you to identify all these cheap copycats and systems on the market which either not deliver anything good or even harm the people around us, which is, in my opinion, it's not acceptable.